Preface. Under the name of profits, rent, interest upon capital, surplus value and the like, economists have eagerly discussed the benefits which the owners of land or capital or some privileged nations can derive either from the underpaid work of the wage labourer or from the inferior position of one class of the community toward another class, or from the inferior economical development of one nation towards another nation. These profits being shared in a very unequal proportion between the different individuals, classes and nations engaged in production, considerable pains were taken to study the present apportionment of the benefits and its economical and moral consequences, as well as the changes in the present economical organization of society which might bring about a more equitable distribution of a rapidly accumulating wealth. It is upon questions relating to the right to that increment of wealth that the hottest battles are now fought between economists of different schools. In the meantime, the great question, what have we to produce and how, necessarily remained in the background. Political economy, as it gradually emerges from its semi-scientific stage, tends more and more to become a science devoted to the study of the needs of men and of the means of satisfying them with the least possible waste of energy. That is a sort of physiology of society. But few economists, as yet, have recognized that this is the proper domain of economics, and have attempted to treat their science from this point of view. The main subject of social economy, that is, the economy of energy required for the satisfaction of human needs, is consequently the last subject which one expects to find treated in a concrete form in economical treatises. The following pages are a contribution to a portion of this vast subject. They contain a discussion of the advantages which civilized societies could derive from a combination of industrial pursuits with intensive agriculture and of brain work with manual work. The importance of such a combination has not escaped the attention of a number of students of social science. It was eagerly discussed some 50 years ago under the names of harmonized labor, integral education, and so on. It was pointed out at that time that the greatest sum total of well-being can be obtained when a variety of agricultural, industrial, and intellectual pursuits are combined in each community, and that man shows his best when he is in a position to apply his usually varied capacities to several pursuits in the farm, the workshop, the factory, the study, or the studio, instead of being riveted for life to one of these pursuits only. At a much more recent date, in the 70s, Herbert Spencer's theory of evolution gave origin in Russia to a remarkable work, The Theory of Progress by M. Mikhailovsky. The part which belongs in progressive evolution to differentiation, and the part which belongs in it to an integration of aptitudes and activities, were discussed by the Russian author with depth of thought, and Spencer's differentiation formula was accordingly completed. And finally, out of a number of smaller monographs, I must mention a suggestive little book by J.R. Dodge, the United States statistician, Farm and Factory, Aids Derived by Agriculture from Industries, New York, 1886. The same question was discussed in it from a practical American point of view. Half a century ago, a harmonious union between agricultural and industrial pursuits, as also between brain work and manual work, could only be a remote desideratum. The conditions under which the factory system asserted itself, as well as the obsolete forms of agriculture which prevailed at that time, prevented such a union from being feasible. Synthetic production was impossible. However, the wonderful simplification of the technical processes in both industry and agriculture, partly due to an ever-increasing division of labor, in analogy with what we see in biology, has rendered the synthesis possible, and a distinct tendency towards a synthesis of human activities becomes now apparent in modern economical evolution. This tendency is analyzed in the subsequent chapters, a special weight being laid upon the present possibilities of agriculture, which are illustrated by a number of examples borrowed from different countries, and upon the small industries to which a new impetus is being given by the new methods of transmission of motive power. The substance of these essays was published in 1888 to 1890 in the 19th Century, and of one of them in the Forum. However, the tendencies indicated there have been confirmed during the last 10 years by such a mass of evidence that a very considerable amount of new matter had to be introduced, while the chapters on agriculture and the small trades had to be written anew. I take advantage of this opportunity to address my best thanks to the editors of the 19th Century and the Forum for their kind permission of reproducing these essays in a new form, as also to those friends and correspondents who have aided me in collecting information about agriculture and the petty trades. P. Kropotkin, Bromley, Kent, 1898. Chapter 1. The Decentralization of Industries. Who does not remember the remarkable chapter by which Adam Smith opens his inquiry into the nature and causes of the wealth of nations? Even those of our contemporary economists who seldom revert to the works of the father of political economy and often forget the ideas which inspired them know that chapter almost by heart, so often has it been copied and recopied since. It has become an article of faith, and the economical history of the century which has elapsed since Adam Smith wrote has been, so to speak, an actual commentary upon it. Division of labour was its watchword, and the division and subdivision, the permanent subdivision of functions, has been pushed so far as to divide humanity into castes which are almost as firmly established as those of old India.